place without limits or judgment. A place for you and people like you to tell your most effed up stories.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Effed Up Stories. I am your host, Will Pender.
And I am your co-host, Ryan Sharp.
And tonight we have a special guest with us. His name is Steven Butler. He is an ordained minister who has been attacked by demons. But before we jump into that, I'd just like to point out that if any of you have any paranormal stories, pictures, or videos, I would like you to submit that to us at effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. Go to submissions from the menu and fill out the form, and your content could end up on our website and or in a podcast. And with that said, please welcome Steven Butler. Hello, Steven.
Hey, how's it going?
It's pretty good. So I understand you are an ordained minister. What does that entail?
Let's see. I work for a hospice locally. I'm a chaplain, so I go and spend time with people in their last days, and really try to strengthen the beliefs they have, and it's not my job to go in and, convert people to a certain religion or anything, but it's, I'm just there for spiritual and emotional support and comfort. And I also minister at my church from time to time. Basically, being ordained means you can marry, bury, and baptize people.
Okay. So, when your main point, I guess, is that you are emotional support for people who are passing.
Right.
Do you get
absolutely?
Do you ever get any anything strange come out of that, like things that they say or things that happen after the fact, or?
Yeah, I'll tell you something that's pretty interesting to me is and this happens far too often for it just to be written off. In hospice, they teach you that that the end of life, that the brain does certain things, like they may see people that's not there. They'll be talking to dead relatives that's been dead for decades. But I'm not so sure that that's just the brain's way of, shutting down. I think maybe they really are, seeing somebody and talking to them. Who am I to say that they're not,
Yeah.
Maybe it's a case of the spirit waking up and less of the brain shutting down.
Absolutely, and that's an excellent way to put it. But I think the closer you get to death, maybe the veil that separates us and them is a little thinner, maybe you're able to peer into that.
So, Stephen, I understand that you were attacked by demons.
Yes, I've actually had quite a few experiences. I've had a couple of attacks by demons, and they, it terrorized me for probably about a month out of my life, and I didn't know where to turn or what to do, because these kind of things is not something that you really want people to know, because people think you're crazy, but I don't have anything to gain by telling this. I'm not writing books or making movies or anything like that, but my main purpose for, telling these stories is, because there's people out there that are going through this, have gone through this, and they're wondering what's going on, because we're typically not taught in church that these things can happen to you. And a lot of people have a misconception that if you're a Christian or, or even a preacher for that matter, that these things can't touch you. But I'm here to tell you that they can. And what's really funny is that I've gotten a good understanding of how this thing was able to come in my house. But now the what it is, I'm not so sure about. The only thing I can conclude is it's a demon. But I'll tell you how everything started. I was at home by myself one night, and my wife, her dad had a heart attack, so they sent him to UAB hospital for an emergency open heart surgery. So I was here by myself and had to work, was the reason why. So when I got off work, I got home and was resting on the couch, and it felt like I got struck by lightning. It was shocking because it took me by surprise. And this is a good experience. I just started laughing uncontrollably, and I felt better than I ever in my life felt. It's almost like tingling, on the outside of your flesh, but also inside, kind of like the center of your being, And, man, I just jumped up and started, praising God. And, I'm usually not the type to get loud and boisterous when singing or praising the Lord and all. But I was running down the hallway and come back through, and I saw a cloud floating in the hallway, and it looked like the clearest, purest water that you've ever seen, with these little tiny specks in it that was shining so bright that you couldn't stare at it. It would hurt your eyes. So I walked into it, and it was almost like something was on my face, obstructing my vision. And I knew right away, guys, that the Lord was in my house. I wouldn't have been more surprised if he would have just walked around the corner and there he'd be. And, when you're in a place like that, I do believe in the presence of God. I believe in the power of God. You kind of cross the line from skepticism to knowing these things when it happens to you. But then everything worked out fine with my father-in-law's surgery. Well, I had started working at a plastics company here in Sheffield. It's one town over from where I'm at. And the guys that owned this company were the most evil, hateful men that I've ever in my life met. They were terrible. the only reason I took this job is I was working a swing shift and working all the time, strange hours. Never got to see my wife and my little boy. So I took this job. It was about a $10 an hour pay cut, but it was worth it to me. I've learned that money isn't everything. But anyhow, I started working at this plastics place, and I mean right away, one of the owners just started in. Oh man, he just would make fun of me, belittle me, try to make me look stupid and feel stupid for my beliefs primarily.
Oh, okay.
And I noticed he was having a bad day one day, and I asked him. I said, "You want me to pray for you?" And he said, "No, that's all right." And I invited him to church. I thought, man, maybe this guy needs to, get a touch from the Lord, or get his life right. So I invited him to church, and he said, "Well, my wife is a witch." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "So you want to come to church?" But anyhow, when I first started working there, I prayed for this guy, and I tried to stay positive, and I did. As a Christian, I'm taught in the Bible that you're supposed to love your enemies and do good to those that do wrong to you. So I did. I was trying to exercise that, and it got to the point to where I started having hatred in my heart for this guy. And that's bad. I felt bad enough about that on top of, having hatred for this guy. And it got to where when I got to work, that I couldn't stand to see his face. I just loathed him.
So after you'd reached out to help him, he continued to be taunting and negative.
Yes.
Okay.
He was just terrible. He was terrible. So anyhow, during that time, I was asleep on the couch one night, and my wife usually will come and wake me up and tell me to come get in bed. But it was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I heard a voice, and I thought it was my wife. But that split second when you kind of wake up and you come to yourself. Well, that happened to me, and I knew that wasn't my wife. It sounded like a room full of people. I was scared to open my eyes of what might be there. But it sounded like hundreds of people in my living room carrying on conversations amongst themselves. Kind of like if you go into a shopping mall during Christmas time, you just hear the chatter and ambient conversations, going on.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it sounded like. So I opened my eyes to the shock of my life. There was this thing floating right above my face, and it was staring right into my eyes. It had a white face and burning orange eyes, and it had on like a cape or a cloak, and this clothes looked like it was alive, like they were moving and floating. And as soon as I focused in on this thing, it's almost like somebody snatched it out of the room, like I wasn't supposed to see this. And then that got me to pondering some questions as like, what really happens when you sleep? Why was this thing talking to me while I was asleep? I didn't understand that, and it's still a bit mysterious to me.
Now, was its face human at all, or was it completely just strange?
It looked like a monster.
Okay, so it didn't have did it have a nose? Like, what did it look like?
Oh yes. Yeah, it had human features, but they were distorted. Like kind of like, have you ever seen the Nosferatu?
No.
Yeah, like the old vampire film. Yeah.
Right. It kind of looked like that, but his eyes was burning like an ember color.
So his nose was kind of pulled up a little bit, and it had angular features.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
This was a bad dude, and it scared me so bad. I mean, I've never been this scared in my life.
So did you feel a particular presence from this thing, like a malevolent presence, or just?
Well, the second one, yes. And they were completely different, these things. But anyhow, a few days went by, and I was really, tormented about this experience that I've had. Well, once again, I fell asleep on the couch. I know it sounds dumb, but I like to stay up late and watch shows and stuff, but I fell asleep on the couch. This time I was awoke by a sickening feeling, like, I mean, it made me violently ill.
Like nauseous.
And I opened my eyes, and I couldn't move anything. But I could move my eyeballs, like I was scanning the room and looking around to see what was going on, how this was happening to me. And all of a sudden, it felt like somebody set a truck on my chest. And the couch that I was on, I heard the wood and the components of the couch start to creak and buckle, And like on the side where the cushions are, I could literally see myself being pushed down, and heard the sound of the, creaking frame of it. And by the time it was, finished pushing me down, the cushions was completely flush with the top of my body. It pushed me down as far as it could. And that scared me enough. But then what happened next was truly horrendous. I saw this black mist starting to form behind the couch. Well, it went up and over the couch, kind of like a snake almost, and it assumed the form of a man. And this thing it wasn't like smoke. You know how usually when people see ghosts that they're kind of lofty and translucent, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
But this was not like that at all. It was solid black, like velvet. You couldn't see through it, and it was just dark as dark can get.
So it was like a...
Well, anyhow, it assumed the form of a man, and it put its arm across my chest and my throat, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe anyway because of the weight that this thing put on my chest. I don't know how that happened, but I couldn't breathe. I was gasping. I couldn't speak. I tried to call out the name of Jesus, and I couldn't. I tried with everything I had to move and to speak, but it just wasn't happening. But this thing, after it put its arm across my chest and was choking me out, it pressed its face right up against mine. I mean, its face touched my face. Kind of like usually when two guys are fighting, they'll get in each other's face, kind of like taunting the other one,
Yeah.
And that's what it was doing.
So it was touching its forehead to yours?
Yes, it was pushing its face against mine. Now, this one did not have any features that I could see. It was just black. There was no eyes. There was no features in its face at all.
It was like a typical Shadowman kind of a...
Absolutely. And really, to be honest, these experiences that I had is what really started me off, searching for answers as to what these things were. Were there other people that had the same experience, and what was their account, But anyhow, this thing pressed its face against mine. But the worst part was the feeling that I had. I mean, this thing hated my guts. And, it had a natural hate and disdain for me. And I felt sick. I could feel what it felt towards me. And it was so evil and wicked. It was just pure wickedness. And it made me sick at my stomach, at the very core of myself. I just felt very ill, very sick. Well, all of a sudden, it just kind of lit up, and it dissipated. And I got up and tried to run to the bedroom to get my wife to pray with me. And my legs wouldn't work. Like, I got up, and I just kept falling and falling every time I tried to run, So me and my wife prayed and prayed, and I was shocked. My main concern was, here I am. I've got a little newborn baby, my baby boy. I was afraid that, if this thing could do that to me, what could it do to my child or my wife? They're kind of innocent casualties in this whole ordeal. Well, I went back to work the next day, and man, I was tore up. I was upset and scared, and I just kept thinking, how could this happen to me? I thought, well, I'm a minister, I'm a Christian, and I try to live right according to how the Bible, how Jesus would have me to live. And I know we all fall short of that, but so anyhow, I was perplexed and confused, and a couple of nights later, something else started. I made it a point to not fall asleep on the couch anymore. But anyhow, I forgot to mention one detail. I usually walk around my house at night and pray, just because it's quiet and it's kind of a personal time,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But there was a spot outside, and I could mark an X on the ground exactly where it was. And I got the same feeling that I got when that demon, pinned me down. And the closer I got to the spot, the worse it felt. Like, it was almost like it was waiting to get in.
So this was in the house, that spot?
No, it was outside. Okay. It was outside.
Was it like in a grassy, like gravel area?
Yes, it was. My yard has kind of like a concrete sidewalk, but at the end of it, it's grass. And then there's the window to my bedroom. Well, this thing was evidently just standing in the same spot, right outside my window. And it was every night.
So
it was nonstop.
Did you actually like try to dig up in that area, or? Oh,
no.
Because one of the things that, like, and I'm just kind of thinking out of the box here, but you said that, that person that gave you trouble at work, his husband or his wife was witch, he said, right? Whether
right.
He was joking or not. But anyway, one of the things that some people who are into witchcraft do is they will actually take an item and they will curse it, do some kind of ritual on it and hide it in or around that person's house that they mean to do harm. And until the person actually finds it and gets rid of it in the proper way, they actually do get tormented by different things, right?
It makes sense. It really does. But I couldn't say for sure, I wouldn't put anything past this guy. He was horrible. But a few nights after this incident, as something else started to happen, I would sleep in the bed with my wife, and every night I would have the same dream. And, it's absolutely crazy, I know, but I would have this dream that this white, tall, spindly-armed, lanky, its arms looked like mop handles. It was just bones and skin. And it was kind of illuminated a little bit. Well, it would poke its head through the wall and kind of check me out. Well, then it started grabbing me. And I was shocked because when this thing grabbed me, it was strong and it hurt me. And I thought, how in the world is this thing grabbing me so hard when it had no muscular features at all. There was no contour to its arm. It was just bony and like emaciated looking. And it had a big, slightly oversized head, but the rest of its features kind of, I don't want to say it looked like an alien, but I really don't know what it was. It looked like a person, but its features were distorted. It wasn't a normal person. But then there was 3 or 4 of them that would come through the wall.
So is this event just so I know what you're talking about here? Was this just one night that just escalated in, or over the course of several days or several weeks it escalated?
Oh, it was at least every night for a week and a half. And I would dream the same dream. It's never happened to me before.
So these things would come through the wall?
Yes.
And I remember reading, when I read this story, it was like their hands were bigger. Like you said, like the hand or the arm could wrap all the way around your arms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it had long fingers. And I don't remember how many there were, as far as fingers go, but it would wrap, when it grabbed me, it would wrap completely around my arm. And it would wrap completely around my legs. And there would be several of them that they would pick me up with no effort at all. And they would take me out the wall. And at the time, it was cold. It was winter time, and I usually sleep in boxer shorts. But when they took me out, it was freezing cold outside. Bone-chilling cold. And I remember feeling the cold, frigid temperature outside.
So when they pulled you through the wall, it wasn't like into another dimension. It was literally outside your house.
Yes, because I remember looking up and seeing the siding of my house and the roof overlapping. I was actually, face up and looking, and I remember, seeing the dark sky and a few stars here and there. But I was looking up, and all of a sudden, it would just end. It would be a dead stop, and I never remembered anything past that. But what's really startling is when I would wake up in the morning, my wife would say, "What in the world did you do to your arm?" And I would have bruises all over me, in the shape of a hand, and fingerprints, and a strange mark that it was a definite pattern, and it was small, tiny red dots. It looked like pin pricks in the shape of a triangle, but it was in straight lines. It started with a small spot, and then a longer line underneath that, and so forth and so on, kind of like a pyramid or a triangle. And then this really spooked me, because every day I woke up, it was something new. And I, you remember if you bumped into something to cause a bruise, but I hadn't, knocked into anything or, scraped my back or anything like that. And I really wish I would have taken pictures of this, but in my mind at the time, I thought, I'm never going to tell anybody this as long as I live. And I never had any desire to try to prove that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you now feel that, I'm sorry, you now feel that they're not dreams? At first what you thought were dreams, slowly over time you've started to believe that they're, that these things actually happen. Is that correct?
Yeah, I knew they were real.
Okay.
Whenever they started happening, I knew it was real. It wasn't a dream. But my body was kind of like in a sleep state, but I could see everything. I could see the sky, and I felt the cold. But I knew this was happening. It wasn't just a dream. And plus, it was every night for a little while, maybe a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, and to wake up with different marks every night. And like I said, when these things would grab your arm, it hurt. Like they would grab, and it felt like a very strong person grabbing your arm. And what really surprised me is when they, pulled me through the wall, it was like it wasn't even there. It was like just, sliding out of anything. I mean, with no obstruction. I didn't feel anything. And that's what really surprised me. I was startled by that fact. So now, by the time all these things had happened to me, I was a nervous wreck. I was scared. I was mainly scared for my wife and my kid, because there was nothing I could do to protect them. We were helpless. Because I always thought that, well, if you're a Christian, that God would protect you from these things, and He will. But the problem, and this is something that was kind of revealed to me, that the problem, the reason this thing was able to do what it did, is because I started harboring a really bad sin in my life. I mean, hating somebody, according to the scriptures, has the same penalty as murder does. When you hate your brother without cause, but I felt like I had a just cause. This guy was terrible, but but anyhow, I went to work the next day, or shortly after these dreams and experiences or whatever. But I would go to work, and I just barely could keep my mind on anything. I was just dwelling on this, and I mean, it really shook me inside. But I remember coming home one day, and you remember when I first started out telling you guys about this, that I felt that incredible experience. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt love and power. I mean, I felt a power about this. And when I was coming home, as soon as I pulled into the driveway, that happened to me again. And man, I felt like I could punch a bullet train, and it would stop dead cold. I mean, I felt like anything was possible. And it felt so wonderful. And when I was feeling this, everything was okay. At that point in time, I felt like everything was okay. You know, at the time, I wasn't doing drugs or drinking or anything at all. You know, at this time, I'd been serving God for about 11 years. And, you know, I used to live a wild life and drink and party. But one day I gave my life to the Lord, and He changed everything instantly. It was really a miracle. So I had not, you know, been doing anything that would, you know, cloud my judgment or cause me to see things that weren't there. But anyhow, I felt empowered in a way and I knew right away that I needed to go into my house and cast these things out. So I walked in, and I mean, I felt so wonderful that I was crying tears of joy, you know. You know, it was the ugly crying face and everything. I didn't care. I mean, it was just, I was shocked that, you know, I felt this wonderful. And I went in and I cast these things out in the name of Jesus. And I knew they were gone instantly. I knew that they were gone. And I felt like God had delivered me from these hateful feelings and anger that I had toward this man. But I found out something that was kind of startling and incredible. Later, after these experiences, one of my coworkers that had been working there a lot longer than me, well, she knew the owners pretty well, and she said that this man had come home from work one day, and he had a young teenage son that had taken his own life, and he never was the same after that. And here I was, I had just, you know, had my baby boy, you know, and so I had a newfound compassion for this man. But one thing that was revealed to me is these things that were tormenting me, it kind of followed me home from that man. It's the same things that torment him every day of his life. And, you know, it's one thing to know that you're battling spiritual warfare. You know, everybody is to some degree. You're fighting thoughts and ideas and actions and emotions, unhealthy emotions like anger and, you know, shame and guilt and things like that, depression and whatnot. But, you know, it's one thing to know that you're dealing with that, but it's another thing to actually see what you're fighting and to be helpless against it.
Well,
and
I have a slightly different. There's a couple of things I took away from that I don't know if it's entered your mind or not, but in particular the dreams that, well, they weren't dreams, where you were taken from your bed, and the strange markings, and the way you described the beings, and the fact that you wouldn't remember after, you know, you got out, you'd see the night sky, and you wouldn't remember. They're very, very hallmark examples of people who've been abducted, just like the being paralyzed and not able to move, the strange marks that you would have when you wake up. In fact, even the shadow being that you saw is very, very common from abductees.
Absolutely. And I thought about that, and you know, I'd never given aliens and stuff, you know, other life forms that much thought. But you know, people really don't know what angels look like.
Well, yeah, I know.
And there's just as many. Well, there's a third of the angels that fell with Satan, and you know, they're out tormenting people and, doing what they do. And, most people are unaware of this. They just, they just think that's the way they are, and it's just the way of the world and it's life,
Can you remember if before any of this happened, I mean, even from the time you were young, if you had ever experienced, missing time or anything of that nature, I guess?
Never. Never anything.
If it were me, I'd be interested in having some past life regression done.
Post hypnotic regression.
Yeah, I'd be interested in doing that because, I mean, for me, I mean, Ryan, you can weigh in with what your thoughts is, but to me, it more sounds like a typical abduction experience.
Yeah, and again, here we see the many of the abduction hallmarks, and this is where it really gets into the question is what is the UFO phenomenon? Is it a nuts and bolts phenomenon, or is it a psychic phenomenon, or an extra dimensional, or a mixture of everything? Yeah, exactly, a spiritual phenomenon. And I mean, I'm guessing at any point did you see any strange lights in the sky or any aerial phenomenon during all of this, or was it just the?
Oh no, not at all.
So I mean, we can say aliens, of course. It's
oh yeah.
Where they come from, we have no idea. But here we have another example here now of just this mixture of, I guess, what people have termed now high strangeness.
Well, yeah.
Yes, it was definitely that.
One of the other things, like in terms of Shadowmen, yeah, you see this kind of linked to like the UFO phenomenon, but just to weigh in on my own 2 cents on the Shadow Man kind of a thing, because they're noted to be to show up around where there's lots of negative energy and stuff like that. And there was one thing that actually happened with, now this was a couple months ago, but something happened to me that made me really, really mad. Like, I'm usually mad that, like, almost as if I couldn't control it. And I was like that for, like, a week. It's like I couldn't shake it. I just had it. And Ryan, I'm not sure if I told you this or not. I probably did. But my wife, she works at the hospital. And currently she works in admitting. And, of course, they got security cameras and stuff like that. All around. And at this time, when I was really, really mad, there was a couple times during that, that whole thing, that she was actually seeing shadow people. And one time in particular was when she was at her desk where she would be admitting people, and there was no one around. It was late, and in the security camera that was showing her and behind her, she actually saw a shadow person go across. And this kind of thing kind of happened a couple, half a dozen times during that week. And after one day, it kind of left me, whatever it was. It just got out of my system. Because I don't even know why I was so mad for, why it was just stuck with me like that. It's like I couldn't shake it. And then one day it was just gone.
It was almost like something that didn't come from you.
Yeah, like, I mean,
it was an outside influence.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, something did make me mad, but I don't know why it stuck. Like, I shouldn't even have been mad about it an hour later, right? It wasn't that big a deal, but it just stuck inside of me, and I couldn't shake it, and I felt it for like a week. And when it finally left, that's when all that strange stuff that Brittany was experiencing left. And it got me thinking about the possibility of like negative emotions kind of manifesting, these shadow creatures, or maybe just making it possible for them to exist. Because it also made sense that it would manifest in an area that was close to my life, right?
Right.
Not some random person. It was my wife. Now, why it went after my wife? Because I wasn't mad at her. I wasn't mad at her, you know. But it was just interesting anyway. So I've been thinking about that a little bit ever since. And every time the shadow person phenomenon comes up, I kind of think back to that and wonder and see if I can draw any parallels or, you know, because I don't understand it myself. And it's just, you know,
I'll tell you one thing that was very unique about all these experiences that were happening to me in this short period of time. They started happening after I started working at that plastics company. And I got the feeling, an overwhelming feeling, that they were all related. And who's to say that the same creatures or people aren't to blame for haunted houses and so-called alien visitations or abductions and or high strangeness in any vernacular, you know. You know, I've heard people. Stan Gordon is a pretty interesting fella. He documented a bunch of Bigfoot sightings up in Pennsylvania. That they were otherworldly, almost like they weren't animals or physical beings. They would disappear. They would people would shoot at them, and you know nothing would happen.
Yeah, and unfortunately, even in today's paranormal and cryptozoological research circles, you have these circles of flesh and blood Bigfoot researchers who believe that these are 100% flesh and blood beings. It can be nothing else. And, that's the main theory that's proposed. But time and time again, we hear these strange paranormal events surrounding sightings of large, hairy humanoid creatures, whether it's lights in the sky or disappearing beings or, other strange cryptozoological creatures appearing around the same time in the same area. There seems to bespeak a greater reality there, that it's more than just a flesh and blood being.
Well, let me just shoot out a little bit of a theory here. It's been said to me, and I'm sure that you both have probably heard the same thing, that positivity vibrates at a higher frequency, negativity vibrates at a lower frequency, and different entities likewise in different dimensions, you got your more negative beings in a lower vibrational dimension and so on. Well, if you're mad or you have negativity kind of directed toward you, which negativity breeds negativity, right? So
right, absolutely.
So then you're becoming negative, and it's almost like that energy absorbs into your own chemistry. And just by having that happen to you, you probably open the possibility for other negative things to exist, right? Like just by becoming more negative, negative entities are probably, I don't know if drawn to you is the right way to put it, but perhaps only within that atmosphere could they even exist.
So you lower yourself to their level.
You kind of lure them to you,
right.
and it's not necessarily intentional. Like, like you said, like in your story, this guy, if he's giving you all this negative hostility, I mean, it's really hard to not let that get to you and not be, let it affect you in a negative way. How can you not, like, everybody? Yeah, you can't just shrug it off all the time. Like, there has to be some of it seeping into you, so then it makes you kind of negative, which is just human. I mean, I can't.
Well, it's kind of like it kept like chipping away at the stone.
Yeah.
To the point to where it just broke me, and it was kind of like I don't remember which one of you guys was telling a story about the shadow beings manifesting around your wife at work and things.
Yeah.
But, you said that you were angry, and it almost felt like it was an outside influence, and, it just got to you. And, that's exactly what I felt. As soon as I kind of reached the breaking point from, going to work and being John Q. Christian and, praying for this man it went from that to bitterness toward him and hatred. And, but it overtook me almost like a force, and it felt, stronger than I was. But I'll tell you the one thing of all these experiences that was the absolute worst was the feeling that I felt when I was on the couch, and this thing, it's almost like it exuded a feeling that it emanated out of this being, and I felt it. It permeated and penetrated my heart and my soul and everything. It was absolutely horrible. And I can't explain the way that it makes you feel, but it's almost every hard, negative emotion that you could ever feel. Hatred, just sickness and wickedness and evil. And it was quite surprising that all these things were happening. I saw, was attacked by the shadow being, and I saw whatever it was that was speaking to me while I was asleep, flying above me, and then, these other things, taking me in the night. And I know it sounds crazy, but, it's like I said, I don't have anything to gain by telling this, in just hopes that it will help somebody else maybe going through some of the same things, and let them know that they're not alone.
Well,
that they're, that God is more powerful than anything.
A lot of people who have these experiences, actually almost everybody I've talked to have had the same, the same outlook, is that it's never about selling a book. Most people who are selling a book are researchers who I've talked to.
Right.
They're researchers who are trying to get put out their findings. But when it comes to like being that person who has the experience, being that person who had to sum up the courage to talk about it, couldn't talk about it, these are the people usually, a couple of reasons that they do it is they wanted to get it off their chest. They want to find others who are like them, because it's a lonely place to be that person who had this strange experience that you don't know anyone else who's had it. It's a lonely place to be. And the third reason is, like you said, to hopefully help others, try to bring some positivity to this otherwise negative experience. So, there's a lot of experiences. We've had quite a few on our show. So I think that it's not as uncommon as people like to think, and then you have to wonder how many people have these experiences and don't talk about it.
Right, you're exactly right, and the way that you put that was absolutely perfect. And that's one reason I was really, when I stumbled across you guys' show, I was immediately drawn to it, because most everybody that's been on your show, it's just ordinary, everyday guys, and just normal people. They don't have an axe to grind. They don't have anything to gain. If anything, we've got something to lose. Is what people perceive to be our sanity. It makes us look crazy to other people, because it's like trying to describe apple pie to somebody who's never tasted it. You can't make somebody experience it or feel what you felt. But I don't have no reason to be dishonest or just make story. I'm not that creative, but it's just incredible, and that's why I contacted you guys, because I thought, well, this is a perfect outlet to to get it out there, and I'd finally gotten up to the point to where I was had enough courage to let it out, and I do. It does make me feel better to be able to tell people, and I've gotten to the point that I don't care what people think. I don't. I mean, I'm soon to be 35 years old, and some people live like they're in high school, even in their 30s.
Like me.
Worried about
well, to a degree, right? I still play video games, and
I do too.
I'm a big kid, right? But I'm a big kid. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Now, that said, I really don't care that much about what people think
growing
about
old. Growing old is inevitable, but growing up is an option.
Yeah,
indeed.
I still try to be a kid at heart.
What would you suggest to somebody currently experiencing something similar to this? Because I think we've established that phenomenon like this. It appears that it can dress itself up however it likes, and that's part of the difficulty in identifying. Like you said, you said
right.
you call it demons. Mostly, I guess because that's what you identify with the most keenly, due to your beliefs and culture and whatnot.
Right.
But what would you suggest to the average person who experiences something similar to this, I guess?
My greatest advice to people, I know not everybody is a believer in Jesus and the Bible, but to those that are, just know this, that God is more powerful than anything else that can come against you, and I learned this the hard way. I mean. I know because I experienced it, and it was almost like God anointed me to throw these things out, and I really, in my mind, I don't think that I could have done it without Him. I mean, it would have been impossible, because it's kind of like trying to fit a square where a circle should go. You can't fight a spiritual issue with by physical means. It's another thing that I would encourage people to do across the board. If there's anything going on in your mind and in your life that is negative to your conscience or to your spirit or to your God, whatever you may choose to worship, if there's something negative and it's tearing at you, man, do your best to run away from it and avoid it like the plague, because I never dreamed in my life that something as simple as harboring hatred toward a fellow human would open the door for such things to happen. It was almost like my covering of protection had a hole in it or something, from my actions toward this man, and it happened. I mean, and I knew that as soon as these things started happening to me, I knew exactly why.
I think and that's what I take away from this too. In fact, it's got me wanting to look more into it, and that of how your own emotions tends to, whatever you're feeling, whatever your overall, attitude is, draws the same kind of emotional content to it. So if you're a happy person, you're going to draw happiness to you. If you're down in the dumps, you're depressed, you're going to draw more negativity towards you, almost like magnetic. And the real question is going to be, how do you get out of that if you're in that rut, how do you not be depressed? How do you not be negative and actually crawl out of it? And that, I guess, for some people like yourself would be faith. For other people, it could be setting goals and, their goals to get out and accomplishing them one by one. But, I think it's something that bears looking into, because time and time again we see that, just mere thought, just thought and attitude and focus can really bring upon the changes from the happiest to the darkest. So with that said,
I'll tell you another thing too is, there's some things that you, can cause yourself, like, depression, anxiety, fear, guilt. That's basically your body's way of telling you that maybe your thoughts are not where they should be. Except for people that, genuinely have a chemical imbalance or whatnot. I went through extreme depression through this. And the only thing that really kept me from, pondering, taking my own life. I mean, I actually, that thought would cross my mind, and I never have thought about that before, ever. I've always been a real happy guy. I've always been pretty nice to other people and get along with anybody. I usually love the people that are hard to get along with. But there's something about this man, it was almost like it was an outside influence that I couldn't help, almost, that just kept chipping away at me. But, also there's things out there. I mean, I believe they're devils or demons, whatever they may be. They hate you and I. I don't know why, but they have a natural hate for us, and they will do anything they can to make you miserable.
Yeah, well, there are beings that supposedly are jealous because we are in the world. We have physical bodies. The Jinn being one of them. So that's something that normally we don't really think about or have to contend with, but it is for a lot of people a reality, right? So with that having been said, Steven, thanks for coming on to the show and sharing your story. You're
very welcome, and I thank you guys for allowing me to come on and share this.
Oh, it was our pleasure. In fact, you've given me more to think about, because I'm really on to that whole thought process, how it can affect your actual physical situation and draw what it's going to draw to yourself, whether negative or positive. I really do think it's a thing, and I'm really interested to see if that could be tied to shadow people, because the more and more I look into this thing, it seems to draw that that idea. So with that said, thanks for coming on. It was a really interesting and illuminating episode for me in particular. For everyone else out there, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do have any paranormal stories, videos, or media whatsoever, we would appreciate it if you would submit that to us at effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. And we will get it on the website and possibly in a podcast. And with that said, this is Will Pender signing out.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.